Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is proudly presented by Spartan Combat. Spartan Combat has a awesome crew neck, and everyone knows I'm a sucker for a good crew neck. Go to SpartanCombat.com, click on athletes, click on Kyle Dake, and you'll see the crew neck there. It's a beautiful, very simple-looking crew neck. I think you'll love it. It's $50. Check it out at SpartanCombat.com. Now let's get to the show.
It does show you that accountability at an early age. Like, damn, like, I knew what I was trying for because I feel like I was tougher than this kid, but he was obviously tougher than me. He won the match. We're 70 pounds. We're both 10 years old. This is the fairest match you're going to get. And when a kid beats you, so you start hitting that accountability early in life, I feel like.
We can endure anything and adapt and pivot and change. Wrestling gave us that ability.
I would say nothing in life has impacted me more than the things wrestling has taught me in terms of self-reflection, resilience.
Toughness. Some guys have it, some guys don't.
Adversity, 100%. How to pick myself up and be a man after I failed.
And everything that has shaped my life and where I'm at today would not be there without the values and basically the lessons I've learned through the sport of wrestling.
For me, wrestling saved my life because it allowed me to focus and channel my energy.
We're fortunate if you wrestle, because if you wrestle, natural talent helps, but it's 5% of the ingredient. It pales in comparison to heart and technique and effort.
It humbled me, taught me humility. Nothing can humble you more than wrestling. I think it's the learning to adapt, right? You learn how to adapt, you learn how to solve problems.
You know, if I look back at my time I spent wrestling, if it gave me one thing more than anything else, it's mental toughness.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Wrestling Changed My Life podcast. This is your host, Ryan Warner. Thank you so much for tuning in. I say it each and every week, but it really does mean the world to me that so many people tune in consistently to hear these stories. Today's guest is Brandon Wright. Brandon was a two-time NAIA National Champ for Grandview, a two-time Indiana State Champ, a Fargo Cadet National Champ, and the son of the great Tim Wright, who was a guest on this show back at episode 229. For a quick reminder, Tim Wright, Brandon's dad, was the first four-time NCAA champ ever. He did it in Division Two in the 80s, and then Pat Smith did it, of course, in the early 90s at the Division I level. Awesome conversation here with Brandon. I hope you enjoy it. Fan of the week goes to our friend Mark Corker. He's a businessman up in Canada, a software salesman, so we got a lot in common there. He claims he was an average high school wrestler, but it had a huge impact on his life, and he loves the show. Mark, thank you so much for tuning in. And folks, as mentioned, this episode's brought to you by Spartan Combat. They're one of our original partners and do a fantastic job helping to support this show. Please pay them a visit at SpartanCombat.com. Now let's get to the show with Brandon Wright. Brandon Wright, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate being here.
It is awesome. And for folks who don't know, Brandon is the son of Tim Wright, who's been on the podcast. And Tim Wright is a legend from where I'm from, the Quad Cities part of Illinois. Brandon grew up in Indiana. And man, it's just good to have you on the podcast.
Man, it's blessed to be here, man. It's a great opportunity for the brand and myself.
Yeah, let's talk about Right Way Wrestling, man. So you had a storied career, and we're going to talk about all of that. But how did you come to found Right Way Wrestling?
So in my early years, Pops always coached. He was the creator of Right Way Wrestling. The right way, what he used to call it back in the day. He did camps and clinics and a lot of private one-on-one training. So I've always I grew up with my pops just being seeing him manifest this thing, and not having a whole lot of support, but he's a guru when it comes to wrestling, when it comes to technique. He's I call him the sensei. He's like a sensei when it comes to technique. He knows all kind of ways he knows, and I've seen him do a lot of private training growing up, and that's what I'm doing now. I do a lot of small groups. I'm growing into a youth group and stuff like that. We're growing to a youth group in different locations, but I've always done a lot of private training. So and I picked that up from him.
And what was his approach to wrestling as a kid? Like when he was coaching you? Like what were some of the first things he did with you?
always wanted to get me stronger. His mentality was always, before we even get out here, and I was always naturally a strong kid, growing up in Rock Island. I lived in Rock Island until about 8 or 9 before we moved to Indianapolis. So like my pops would always have me like just doing push-ups for like neighborhood friends. So like I always remember like just him always like making sure like you wanted your body physically ready for wrestling before you even get to the sport. So that was like I had to beg him, to let him know that I was serious to start doing it. Right about when we moved to Indianapolis, kind of I got started, and he was just big on. My pops was like he's a psych guy, man. He's big mentally. He as aggressive as he is, his mind. So he was always big on like, if you want to, you'll work hard enough. It's simple. Work hard, and that's how he was. Are you working hard enough? You know what I'm saying? Are you being lazy? Can you do more? So that was always his mentality when I first got into it. And loving it. Making sure that because if you loved it, it would go longer ways with you. And I kind of always have had, strong love for sport because of that.
So how was he a master of the mind and the mental games? Did he know how to push you in those kind of things?
He was big when I started actually training on my own, independent, middle school, do my own little runs, really high school, get my own runs in. I'd come back from runs and possibly like, oh, you didn't get a run in. I'm like, man, I just got a 2-mile run. I'm sweating. So I'd go take off again just because I wanted to show him too that I was working, and that kind of, even though I was working my ass off, I always wanted my dad to validate that I was working hard, because if he validated, then I knew I was in the right position to win.
And what, when you think about Tim Wright's technique vocabulary, what are a few that really resonated with you and that you adopted as kind of your own?
Set it up, man. If you're going to set it up, man, we're big on the style. Even with me coaching my guys now, we don't do no diving. We want to make sure, we get in, we're going to set things up, and we want to have a strategy to win it, and with different opponents, you might have to have a different approach. And my pops is always good at setting strategies with different guys that I maybe have to approach. I wasn't big on studying other opponents, but he would come to me, let me know, we only going outside singles. We only going high crotches. We only going doubles. We're going drags. And that's how I would approach the match, and we'd get the W.
Man, dude, can you imagine being in a corner and having Tim Wright as your coach? When did you realize his legacy in wrestling?
Honestly, I'm glad you asked that question, man, because I just told him yesterday during Christmas, it took me to actually get to, the college to realize who my dad was and what he had accomplished and how big a feat that was. Because growing up in Rock Island, my dad was a well-known guy. Like, I didn't know who he was in the sport of wrestling until middle school. He would tell me right off the bat, like, these are our goals. You're going to be a 4-time state champ, a 4-time national champ. And I'm just like, all right. So he's like, I want you writing this down. I'm like 12 years old. He's telling me this. So I'm writing it down like all the time, everywhere. I'm just like, not knowing that he's done. He's a 4-time national champ. Like, I'm just the first one ever. I'm not even really knowing it, And so that was I didn't know until after I got to college, after JUCOs, and I was in JUCOs at Iowa Central. I kind of realized, like, man, you did some legendary shit, man. Like, this is better than you. This is a large feat, and that kind of was my goal when I got into sport, though, wrestling. I was like, I want to be better than my dad. I didn't know that he was one of the best ever, right. The first ever. So, yeah, so that was, during that time in JUCO, I realized, just got to make it a vehicle for yourself, man. And so that's what I kind of did start doing.
And for folks who maybe aren't familiar and know what we're talking about, Tim Wright was a 2-time Illinois state champ, and more historically was the first 4-time NCAA champ ever. It was at the Division Two level at SIU Edwardsville in the 80s, but at that time, Division Two wrestlers could wrestle at D1s, and he was also an All-American at the D1 level. What war stories does your pops have from his days? Did he ever share anything with you?
Yeah, man, we were just talking the night too. He's 6-time All-American, man. So getting third twice at D1s, and winning at 4, it's just like we talked about the story, with Iowa State wanted. I'm a big NCAA fan. I love NCAA wrestling a lot. From the history of, especially after I got out of college and the 80s, and I realized the legacy has attached so much families in the wrestling world. And, he was a number one seed, ranked number one at 126 his senior year. And he said he had wrestled Billy Kelly early that year and tied with Billy Kelly. And Billy Kelly ended up winning that 26 that year, 87. Iowa State ended up winning the team title. And I was like, man, can you imagine he just would have won 26 and just, he said, yeah, beat Billy Kelly. And, maybe Iowa State never, wins that title. I'm like, that's the beauty. And, of course he doesn't want to rewrite history of him being his first four-timer and going 18, but obviously I believe he could have won that 26 at D2s and maybe would have been a little bit more stronger and soon towards the end of the year going towards the D1s. But yeah, that story we talk about, man, story he was at D1s and I think he maybe it was sophomore year, junior year, where he like passed out, making the cut and woke up and found out he missed weigh-ins. No, that was it. That was like, I think maybe sophomore year, or maybe it's when it's junior. I think for the senior year he got third, maybe sophomore year he got third. Maybe it's just junior year, man, where he was at D1, so he was cutting. I don't know about this till later on. He was like, yeah, no, making my last cut there, passed out. He said he woke up in a jerk and said, I got to get the weigh-ins. They were like, man, no, man, and that was back in how those weight cuts were back then, brutal. So, yeah, that was just a little story, man, just hearing, what he had to kind of go through. And you just tell that he was just so in love with it at the time, man. And that's what he would always preach to me, man. Just when you love it, you're willing to do whatever it's needed to, be the best.
And he was a guy who could have easily, like you said, won it at the Division I level. And I just want to go back to something you said there. So his senior year at SIU, did he go 118 or 126?
No, he went 118 all 4 years. And
then he jumped up to what weight class for? So he go 118 his senior year at D1s as well?
Yeah, so he started his senior year at 26.
Got it, okay.
Senior year, and wrestled, I think, Iowa State in a duel.
Yeah.
Bill Kelly earlier, and they had ties back then. So I think they ended up tying 3-3.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's later.
And then he went back down.
Then he went down for the team. Yeah.
Got it, man. That was just so fun hearing about him on the podcast. And, one of the times he got in the sauna and one of the guys who was like ranked number one at his weight was in the sauna and, a little smack talk ensued. And I could just imagine, what it would have been like to watch him. And so you're growing up, you're starting to realize how legendary your dad is. And then you get into high school and you have a legendary career in your own right. How did you decide to go to Cathedral?
So my pops, he was originally coaching at, on the east side of this high school called Warren Central, where I ended up transferring my senior year. But he got the opportunity to coach at Cathedral. They reached out, they kind of recognized, his pedigree, and, because my pops didn't have an educational degree, you would think, a guy like him would have the easiest time getting a high school head job, but they have their little stipulations, with, how things are set up in the educational field out here and across America, where, some guys that are actually really qualified, they got some dads in there just, where guys probably more passionate, right guy for the job. They got some other guy in there just, just doing it. And so when he got the opportunity to go to Cathedral, he's coached there my 7th and 8th grade year. And, it was far-fetched me going to school there, man. I wasn't no like brainiac, I'm a East Side kid, I was just, see average student, and we knew it was a college preparatory school, and my pops just knew it was going to be the greatest opportunity for me getting set up in life, and, so we went out into the whole placement process. I took tests and had to wear uniforms, and it was a huge transition for myself, man, and I
Why do you say that?
Huh?
Why do you say that?
Because, it was a private school, I'm really from a public school setting. I'm used to seeing a lot of black kids, now I'm around white kids. I mean, these kids are driving, some of my friends are driving BMWs that are, they're driving cars that are nice to my parents. I'm hanging out in, in areas that just, are just like the luxury life, man. That's thing I was not used to, but I'm so appreciative of, and I still have great friends and I still have great ties with Cathedral. Me and my father do. And I do a lot of privates with guys that go to Cathedral High School. And they've been so supportive in the Wright wrestling, like the transition.
So you got there. It was a pretty big culture shock just from the get-go.
Yeah, man. So it's like uniforms, that was a big thing. I was the type of guy, and I like those school fresh, and that was like the first thing, how strict they were on uniforms. No shirt tucked in, no chewing gum, and I was, I did get, little tiffles, they thought I was a little bit of a knucklehead, which I was, you know, but ultimately, you know, I did become so much more studious there and learn how to become more business etiquette and know how to carry myself in the right settings, meeting the right people, and making the right connections. And that set me up, I think, even though where I am right now, you know, and I think my dad kind of knew that in the future.
Was it an all-boys school?
No, it was an all-boys school. But
thank God,
think,
right?
Yeah. That was
another level.
Say, you know, we had girls, you know, but you know, I was used to, you know, sisters. I was used to like, you know, I used to know, black girls, and it was a different transition dealing with, you know, it was different, man. You know, it was, you know. But I like I said, here or there, it was a big lesson learned for myself. For me, it felt like I went to college at like 14, you know, because how rigorous the education was, on top of, you know, the standard of expectation with the training, the Cathedral's room, you know, even though my dad's a guru of wrestling technique, I mean, Cathedral, they've always had a, you know, strong wrestling pedigree, and they still do to this day, you know, work ethic in that room. And, you know, we have a great history, you know, behind that program.
I need to be set straight on the Indiana high school scene because I did not know that there's only one class in Indiana.
Yeah, man, Indiana's really cutthroat, man. I tell guys that you don't realize it until like we go to college. You know, when I'm in college and I'm realizing, you know, this guy's state champ, this guy's state champ. I'm like, how are all y'all state champs? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's going on? Like, how you guys both from York to the state champ? How you guys both from, you know, PA to the state champ? And I started to realize, oh, they got classes everywhere else. And I started recognizing, like, man, it's an honor to be, you know, we're not the hardest. We're not probably top 5, you know, slowly creeping up to, you know, the top 10, I would believe, Indiana, as far as, you know, the high school scene. But, you know, you definitely sense, man, that there's no wrestlebacks in the semi-states. There's no wrestlebacks the first round. Like, you got to be sharp. You know, Indiana, you got to be sharp. You got to be ready. So these guys that have been 4-timers, these, you know, the Angels, the Reds, you know, these guys like the Circuses, you know, these guys wrestled, you know, they were on point, you know, throughout this whole series. There's no mistakes to be made, you know, if you want to be a 4-timer in Indiana.
What's a semi-state? Is that the round before state?
Yeah, so we go sectionals, regionals, semi-state, and then state. And
you have to win semi-state, or
you have to place top 4 go from semi-state.
Dang, dude.
So top 4 go from semi-state. You got 4 semi-states going to the tournament. When you wrestle a 4, 2 wrestle a 3, first round.
Got it. Okay. And so you get down to state, and like you said, maybe Indiana's not the biggest state, right? So maybe it's not the deepest, but if you think about all those guys coming through one state, there's no room for air, you know?
Yes, that's what the biggest I realized, man. It's no room for air, and you gotta be sharp, man. You gotta be sharp and ready to go.
And I had read that in your high school career, 3 of your finals, you wrestled the same guy. Is that right?
We wrestled in the finals of the regionals, semi-state, and the state tournament 3 years in a row.
Dude,
every weekend.
9 matches?
Every weekend. We wrestled every weekend, the postseason, regionals. Everyone knew it was going to happen. You know, it's Camden, you know, Wright, you know, Eppert and Wright, you know, and he definitely kept me sharp, man. He definitely, you know, he's always a guy that you want and every champion's, you know, champion series, you know, sometimes you can find yourself guys that are so far ahead of the pack, they're just chasing their own legacy. But he was a guy that was so close, you know, and I was so close, you know, we just knew that there's some guy, you know, ain't no off days, you know, there's somebody, he's right there, you know, and we were that for each other throughout my high school career.
So what happened when you guys wrestled in the state finals?
So ironically, my junior year, freshman year, he beat me 6'3". I ended up getting the first takedown and just was choked, man. It was just like, and I say this day, I told my kids about it, you know, everything that me and my father had been for talking about and for wishing, it was right there. And he shot a shot. My dad had this drill we always go over, just throw bys. And my dad had me doing so much that I wouldn't even, like I was hitting and I wouldn't know I was hitting, and boom, I hit it on him and I was up 2-0, and I'm like, oh my God, you know, 4-time state champion, it's coming. And then, you know, fell asleep and got taken down the edge of the mat, ended up losing the match 6-3. And we just, at the end of the match, I ended up snapping my elbow, fractured my elbow, trying to hip toss at the end of the match, and couldn't wrestle that whole summer. and just was off in the cast and put a little weight on.
How much was that match in your mind all summer as you were rehabbing?
Oh man, it was definitely a pushing force, man. I was happy, but I recognized that, man, I got too satisfied. And that, like, I let one of the titles slip away. That'd be that I was working for like a lifetime. I let it, and I can't get that one back, And following year, man, I ended up bumping up, going to 12. I really wasn't a big 3-pounder or 12-pounder. I didn't cut much weight. I didn't cut much weight at all in my, my high school and college career, and ended up beating him. That second year in the finals at 112. Ended up getting 2 takedowns in the finals. It was a dominant win. I kind of showed that I was, honestly, after that time, I had kind of showed I was better. I had won that match on throughout the final year in his senior year, my junior year. And he strategized the match really different. It was just hats off to his corner and him, and they, he rolled the out of bounds line real hard, and he threw legs. He really wasn't throwing legs hard because I was always able to get out. He was throwing legs, kind of doing this giddy back, hop on my back. And yeah, man, long story short, went like triple overtime. And I end up losing a heartbreaker. And it was a great story for him to end his career, man. But just like, I just knew this was going to be one I would never, ever, I still think about it. I would never sleep it off. Never sleep it off. It's a drive. It was a driving force my whole career.
Which was a bigger turning point, the freshman loss or the junior year loss?
Definitely the junior year loss, because I knew that I was better, and I had just made mistakes. And at that time, I was 16, 17, like all high school kids. Now that I'm dealing with them, man, there's a certain ego that comes around a 17-year-old, 16-year-old. I think they know more they know. And I was getting kind of far away from my pops' his lessons and his sermons right around that time when I lost that title. And it kind of resonated with me that I was kind of being a know-it-all, and I just lost another one, another title that we were like on the legacy of getting. So that was a big turning force with, like, recognizing who was my corner, who my pops is, like, just being accountable, holding myself accountable to, doing the right things all the time, So
what were some of his lessons that you were getting away from?
Just knucklehead shit, man. My pops he's not gonna preach. He was big on, like, you live and you learn, So he's obviously had his hard lessons in life, and growing up in the area I was growing up from, it's it wasn't Rock Island's a little different, but and East Side Indianapolis is very similar, I would say, with the culture, with I had friends that probably could have got scholarships to some of the biggest schools, the Big Tens, and some could have played football down south SEC schools, but the nonsense is close by, the distractions are close by, right? And so that's what he was big on, like, Brandon, you got the world, you got the ball, you got it in your hands, you got the whole world in your hands right now, you got it at your balls, what are you gonna do with it, right? And I gambled with that sometimes, I made some not so smart choices, and I paid the piper for sure.
What kind of a mission were you on your senior year?
Just so my senior year, it was that was a big time where, when I kind of had, I told you I was dealing with a big culture shock at Cathedral all those years, and I kind of feel like I was going to school with the cloak on, man. Just acting a certain way, presenting myself a certain way, and honestly, this isn't who I really am, And after a while, it takes a toll on a child or anybody that's going into a place. Because I felt like I was going to school every day at Cathedral, like it was a workplace. I'm 14, 15, 16. And of course, I'm getting in my little troubles, but, I feel as if, like, man, I can't, even my certain friends, I can't be who I really am, because when I go back home, it's, kind of how I listened to Tony Davis's story, man. I was like, that sat with me so much. I was like, wow. Like, of course, I ain't got to take my uniform off. Everyone knows I go to Cathedral. I'm in the paper and stuff like that. But it's nothing that, you want to brag about to your East Side friends that you going to a private school, and you sometimes hang out with friends that got BMWs and some. So when I got back to going to Warren Central, and I came back to the East Side, I kind of felt like more myself, and my work ethic hadn't changed. I was still a work animal. I love working hard. I had always had that passion to love the progress of working hard. So I felt like I had brought that to where I was, and we ended up having a really good season when I came to Warren. We had another state champ Michael Johnson Jones. And so I just felt as if, obviously I got the title. I wanted to make sure that I was dominant. I ended up majoring my guy in the finals, Ethan Rayleigh, who was a respectable opponent. He ended up being a Super 32 champion, ended up being a two-time Indiana champion. So
Damn.
I kind of wanted to show my dominant force that last state championship match that I was like I should have been a four-timer, but I just, I had a strong rivalry that was in my way. And yeah.
I love how every great champion has a rival in some sense. And when you went to Warren, it was kind of like you took the best of both worlds. You took like the personality and like who you actually are, plus, some of the things you learned from Cathedral. And that's just like you said, that's draining to have to go to work like that every day, 10 hours a day as a high schooler.
Yeah, man, because I sense, a lot of people, and they're doing it. I didn't realize that until, obviously I'm older now. You go to therapy, you realize things about yourself. You realize, I felt that's how I fully felt. I didn't know if that was true, but that was a fact, and my mom knew I was going through, my pops knew I was going through, but they just knew the opportunity that was at hand. It's just like, man, we're making great families, make traditions. We're just picking up great connections and network. This is a thing that's good for not just only you, but our family.
Yeah.
So
it's a lot for a kid to bear.
It is because they didn't know how much that I some kids, they don't know what's at hand. I knew when my family left Rock Island that we were coming here to Indianapolis, and it was an opportunity at hand. My father, we were going to get good work, and we were going to change everything was going to change for the better. This was the opportunity. And as I got to Cathedral, I felt like that was another level of it. Now Brandon's going to private school, and I'm doing really well on the wrestling mat, and I'm making a name for myself, my own name for myself, not just being Tim Wright's son. And I think that I didn't want to kind of lose that. I kind of was trying to hold on to that, and being able to go back to Warren and be able to relax and breathe, and where I wasn't a delinquent, when they had really kids that were just really into nonsense, where I was respected as a student athlete, and I was looked towards, I was like a role model, which I felt was true.
Yeah, man, that's just, when you put it in that perspective, you really think twice about some of these kids that are going to these boarding schools at such a young age, and let alone the ones who aren't even living with family. It's like, man, let's get back to being a kid a little bit,
I tip my hats off to them, man. I say, I know about the Blair situation. I know about some of these schools. I know that they're doing it. I'm not shy from it. It's just, man, that's just, make sure these kids are being kids. Make sure they're having their natural experience, because we all got to experience life.
Yeah. And when you were coming up through Indiana, there were some, Search This was a name, obviously, that everyone knows. Was Michik coming up at the same time, or was he younger than you?
Yeah, I think Michik was about the same year as Search This. They're both a couple years younger.
Then you had Hal on the front side, right? He older than you?
Yeah. Hal's about a couple years older.
So, what's the youth scene like in Indiana? Is there a pretty structured state tournament for the middle schoolers? Yeah,
so they have ISWA they run a good structure. I would say they have the middle school tournament, middle school states, I would say, which that's ran towards the end of February, and that kind of qualifies you for the middle school national team, which they go out to Danville and compete against some of those other national teams in Illinois and stuff like that. I wrestled Search a couple. I think he beat me as a sixth grader when I was in eighth grade to make the freaking middle school team.
Damn.
It was the first time I ever heard of him. My dad's he's yeah, because I didn't know Alex had a little brother. So I'm there Alex has a little brother, and my dad's yeah. My dad was big up on letting me know if the kid was good, my dad would tell me this kid's good, But if the kid wasn't good, he's man, you better than this kid, go beat him, And he straight up told me, he was yeah, he, Search he's good, but he ain't good as his brother. Damn, did he lie to me? Man, did he lie? Because we went out there, man, and I still remember the match. He was he had this same stance where Search kind of holds his hand on his front knee, and he was patting away. And I was even aggressive then, where I would just come forward and I just want to snap at you and then shoot hard attacks. And he had a good circle attack and he had a little carry, and he really wasn't very strong, but he was so technical, man. And he really broke the match down. I think I ended up losing by one or two, and he ended up making he's only a sixth grader, man. And I was damn, it kind of, you know, I thought I was getting to that right around middle school before high school. You think you're getting to another level. Like, I'm ready to wrestle high school guys, right? You're like, I'm ready to wrestle these high school guys. I'm ready to get to state tournament. You get knocked off by a sixth grader and then recognizing, like, I mean, he's from a strong family, you know, and you know, that whole time, you know, he had been trained, he had been ready. And so that was middle school.
What would the pop say after a loss? Was he tough on you, or was he like good in terms of handling losses?
Man, it really depends on how I lost, man. Sometimes, like most time when I lost, when I didn't lose a lot of matches where the guy was better than me, my dad believed, you know. If I made mistakes, he let me know you made a mistake, you know. And I think that's what he was big on, you know, just kind of let me know, gotta work this, gotta work that. He would break it down, and he would break it down to me, you know, and that helped me out so much throughout my high school career. I didn't have that my first couple of years in college, you know, for a guy that he built it back up too, you know. But if I took a loss like a punk and I was, you know, a baby about it, he let me know, being candy ass about it, you know, you know, he was definitely the real deal when it came to and then when I was a kid, I was a big boo-hooer, you know. A lot of parents don't know, if you don't know about youth wrestling, there could be a lot of tears in youth wrestling. And I was real shameful, man, when I would lose, because I kind of knew that my dad was like the man, so I didn't want to lose when he was in the corner. So if that would happen, I would find myself, he'd be like, hey, don't be boo-hooing in front of me. Go find a corner and get to it. And I boo-hoo it, get up, and get back to it, you know. And that happened so many times from the first 4 or 5 years when I first got started.
It's funny because the parents get better over time in terms of being like better at handling kids with a loss. I'll never forget one time I lost it in like fourth grade. I lost 5-0. My dad's like, you can't fucking win if you don't score a point. And that was all I remember. That was fourth. And then like over time, by eighth grade, he didn't even care. Like I would be more upset than he would. I mean, he cared, but he was like, let's just go hang out. But no, it was vicious as a kid, vicious. And I'll never forget it. And I don't know if it's all sports. I think it is all sports, but you know, I've only been around wrestling, so it seems like it's a little more harsh.
I've been around a lot of youth sports, and I don't see many kids boo-hoo like they do in the sport of wrestling. I think that is so important because it does show you that accountability at an early age. Like, damn, like I knew what I was trying for, because I feel like I was tougher than this kid, but he was obviously tougher than me. He won the match. We're 70 pounds. We're both 10 years old. This is the fairest match you're gonna get. And when a kid beats you, so you start hitting that accountability early in life, I feel like. And that's why some of these kids, they find themselves boo-hooing because they want to win. They want to win, and they recognize, like, man, I just got beat by somebody that's my most even match. If I can't beat him, then what am I doing? You know, so, and, so I was big on, like, I started picking up early on, like, man, like, I was kind of shameful that because my pops was the man. Like, I didn't want to lose in front of him, man. So I eventually outgrew it and, you know, started breaking down and making the wrestling for myself.
And then without your pops, you know, being in your corner when you got to Iowa Central, was that a transition?
Yeah, man, it was, because originally my pops wanted me to go to Ren Lake. He didn't want me to go there. He wanted where I was signed to go to IU, SAT situations and grade situations. I said more knucklehead stuff that I had got myself into. So when I decided to go to Iowa Central, my whole thought was, I'm going to go JUCO. I'm going to the best, right? And I was big on studying programs as history. You know, like I was like, I what I'm gonna do. You know, I seen who was gonna be in the room. You know, Cologne was gonna be in the room. I knew that they had another Virginia kid that was gonna be there. He ended up transferring out, but we had a tough room. And I mean, Moffitt and Bennett, man. I mean, those guys are like uncles to me to this day. You know, they were tough on us. They had been through the ringer with so many badasses, and every time you come in there, you think you're a hot shot. But like, they seen them all. They seen the John Jones. They seen the Kane Blast. They seen them. You know, and so it was that was the best decision I feel like I really made, man. A lot of people were like kind of upset I went the JUCO route, you know, but that was the best decision I made, man, because you know, Moffitt and Bennett, they handled me the right way, you know. They taught me, you know, they taught me great lessons, man. Using Moffitt told me to use the sport as a vehicle. You know, some guys that love it so much they find themselves in a whirlpool and depression without it. Where, you know, when you're talented enough, you can use this thing as a vehicle. I mean, you're seeing it now. Some of these guys are transferring from here, there, everywhere, and going to Penn State out of the blue. You know, and it's just like that's using as a vehicle, then putting yourself in the best position. So you can win, team can win, and you can take it as far as you can take it. So, And so that was a good transition for myself.
Plus, like, you learned so much about yourself those first 2 years. Going D1 or going to a big school can be overwhelming. You know, like it's such a crazy period.
It would have been for me as well. You know, I was just, you know, I had visited IU. I was getting heavily recruited by every school except, you know, like the Iowa State or Iowa or Okie State. You know, a lot of other schools would recruit me. And I took the IU visit, and I was just like, man, like I was just this campus is so big. Like, I don't even know if I want to, you know, go anywhere. I was kind of set on just staying home. So that's what I was going to do. And because I went to Iowa Central, and, you know, Rock Island's like a midway point. So that was big for me too. So I would always tell myself shoot back home and see brothers and sisters or my aunts and uncles in Rock Island when I was staying in Iowa Central. I couldn't get all the way back to Indianapolis. And
bro, Fort Dodge to Indianapolis is a drive.
Yeah, it's about 7.5, 8 out, about 8.5 hours. Yeah. And I did it on the regular, man. If I had to get home, man, I would shoot back home and go see my mom, man. I'll go see my people for sure.
I was just out in Fort Dodge interviewing Mark Ostrander and Troy Bennett for the Tony Davis documentary. And
yes.
Bennett is the man,
Bennett
bro.
Is the man, man. No one, like, he gave me this, man. I don't know if you guys can see this in the camera, man, but
he did?
Bennett probably remember, man. See, I'm freshman in Indianapolis. You know, I think I'm half-assed tough in JUCO room. You know, I'm talking shit. You know, and there's a lot of talking shit with JUCOs, man. And in that room, man, it was. But you had to prove yourself. And Mafia would put his shoes on and get in the Cooley's ass. He would get in some guys' butts I thought they were half-assed tough. And
Akui was there.
Yeah, so Akui was there. That was my sophomore year. So my sophomore year, we had the best team that never went at Iowa Central, man. It was me, Akui, Cooper, Wilborn. Who else do we have the low and heavier weights? We had some other probably JUCO guys that came from heavier weights or transferred in, some D1 guys that transferred in. But yeah, man, we put four in the national finals, man. 4 in the finals for JUCOs and ended up losing it to, I think, Labette.
What?
By 2 points. It was the craziest finals ever.
Dude, Akui and Cooper, they used to be, you know, really close friends. They're still friends, but man, those are great guys. I didn't know you were there at the same time as them.
Yeah, man, they were my little brothers, man. To this day, those are my little brothers, man. They were big little brothers because I was a sophomore on campus, like kind of like it was the culture. You went to Iowa Central, like even when I wasn't there, you know, like Pat Down is like the culture kind of carries over. It's such a special part to be a part of. You get to be a part of it, and you know, if you can go in it there, you might become a legend. You can become All-American, like I became a 2-time All-American, and you know, like it kind of culture sticks, man. You respect it, and it was weird because when I first came in, Joe Cologne was there redshirting. He was going to go off to UNI, but we trained a lot. You know, he was like a big brother to me. You know, when I was in that whole phase of like, you know, how do we maneuver throughout this whole JUCO process? And at that time, it was come in, win it. If you win it, they'll give you opportunity to redshirt. You redshirt. Now you got 3 years to go D1 and do your thing. And that's where if you come in and you win, that's what the kind of option guys were working towards. And, you know, that second year, I could have kind of redshirted, but I wanted the team title. And I knew who was coming in. Like, I knew these boys are coming in. They're about to win it. I'm not going to redshirt, just watch them win it. And, you know, there could be a lot of lazy shit going on at JUCO if you're not competing, you know. So, you know, we would work hard, we would party hard too, though, you know. And that's kind of those my little brothers, man. I was trying to maneuver. Now, I was a fun guy, but I was trying to maneuver in. But, you know, Coop and the Cooey, man, those guys, I could always take T under my belt, Wilborn, and be like, hey, T, and T would always, all right, D, I got you. But Coop and Akui, they were just, oh man, they were a fun show. They were a show, man.
Bro, they're wild.
Wild boys, man. Especially back in the days.
Oh my
I couldn't
God.
believe when Coop made the transition to Iowa, when I seen him make the transition to Iowa. And I was so proud of him. I seen him at the Midlands when I was at GV, when I was at Grandview. And I was just like, he was just he was different. He was all business. And I was like, what up? Like, he was like back in robot mode. And I was like, man, not robot mode, I would say, but just, you know how the culture is Iowa. You know, you gotta be about business, you know. And we were bipolar of that when we were Iowa Central. You know, so
bro, I could have seen him going to like Nebraska or somewhere, you know, like a little bit more laid back. And I think, you know, he
definitely. I was so surprised by that transition after Upper Iowa. I definitely
And he seems
was.
like he's doing good at Jackson. I think he's down at Jackson still, and in
I know he's
Albuquerque.
fighting somewhere.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's on the come up, man.
Cool's born to fight. I've seen him fight many times. He's born to fight. I see the fight many times. He's born to fight. Yeah,
man.
Sure.
We used to go. My brother and I used to go to IHSA State with that Providence crew for a while, and Clamara was part of it. But like those three, or Akui was at St. Rita, but in the off season we'd all go together. Dude, those three would walk into a gym. Akui, Ed Cooper, Lil Coop, and Eddie Clamara, and they wouldn't lose a match, bro. Like they were filthy.
Yeah, they were raw, man. They were raw.
And Iowa Central, like you said, man, the tradition, it starts in the 90s with the great Steve Williams going there, and Terrell Sandiford, and like these Illinois legends. Tony Davis wins it twice, and then UFCU, as I call it, kind of starts with Kane, John Jones, Colby, and then Moffitt comes in. You guys win a ton of titles, and so when you're there, you're kind of aware of that history and that presence. Yeah.
And the biggest thing for me, because I recognized in my pops' career, he was on winning teams, and that's big to be a part of. To win yourself is awesome, man. But when you can win with the team, man, it sticks forever. And you guys can share memories so much longer. So, even though I got third my freshman year, then sophomore year, it was very similar to the junior year in the high school states. I was ranked number 1, just kind of had a mental funk and ended up losing Anthony Abbott. He ended up transferring to Nebraska, ended up being a 41 at Nebraska after JUCOs. But ended up losing that guy. And, even Moffitt had told me before the match, like after the match, he's like, I just kind of see like, your coaches know you, man. He said, I can see a film of your eyes, and I wanted to smack it. I wish I would have sort of smacked you, woke you up, and I ended up dropping that match, I think like 6-4 or something like that. And I was in deep depression after not winning that JUCO title, because I just kind of felt like, damn, I just burnt 2 years on this JUCO thing. I didn't get no titles. I mean, All-Americans is cool, but in my house, you gotta get titles. Like you don't bring third places back in JUCOs and stuff. So, man, when I was getting recruited by Mitchell and Grandview, I originally didn't go there. I originally ended up going to Notre Dame College in Ohio after Iowa Central. But I'll never forget when Mitchell came in my recruiting visit when I was at Iowa Central, and he was at Des Moines, so he wasn't that far down. He wasn't that far away. And
who's Mitchell?
The head coach at Grandview University.
Okay.
Definitely got to reach out to that guy, Ryan. Legend. I mean, just side guy. I mean, Coach Mitchell was just he's like my remind me a lot of my pops. He's only coach that can remind me that could get me so motivated without cursing me down. Just the way he can say things like, I thought these are the goals you want. Just making you hold yourself accountable to your own words. He was big on that type of stuff. And well, after that transition of like losing that title with Iowa Central, he came in and he was like, is Penn State recruiting you? And I'm like, no. He's like, was Iowa recruiting you? And I'm like, no, where the fuck's this going, man? And he's like, it's Okie State recruiting. He's like, well, these are teams that have like won the Division I title in the last 10 years. These are teams that have the highest outcome. And you said that you want to be on a team that wins national titles. And he was like, that's what we're gonna do at Grandview. I just told him, if I wrestle a non-Division I level, I want all the big opportunities. I want to hit the Midlands. I want to hit the U.S. Open. I want to get these opportunities. And they stuck through. They stuck through with that. Was able to go to Midlands and get on the podium. Compete in universities. Became All-American universities. Qualified for the World Team Trials. It was I was doing a lot of the stuff that it was. I mean, I some guys do on the NAIA level, or the JUCO level, or the D2, where it's not common. They're not common. Most guys say, why is this guy going to Division I? And for me, lifestyle-wise and culture-wise, it was good for me to go stay on these small campuses and, find out who I really am and not have too many distractions.
Yeah, it's like I've heard so many guys say you go to some D1 institutions and you're just like another name on the wall. You're like the 145th All-American. But, if you're in a smaller culture, everything's a little bit more impactful. And unfortunately, I don't think I have time today to go through like the rabbit hole of Grandview, but man, just at a high level, Grandview, like they're dominant in NAIA, right? I mean, just national title after national title.
Yeah. So they just 9 titles in a row Mitchell got from 2011 to last year, Life University that winning it. But yeah, they were 9 titles in a row. I was part of the 4th, 5th, and 6th, or I'm part of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th team titles, you know, and I coached more in 2016, 2015. So, yeah, man, it was they're doing great things out there, and Mitchell's just kind of a guy, you know. It's big, like you said, it's big with wrestling. You know, he's getting some of these top D1 recruits now that you know, a lot of guys are recognizing that, like you said, like I didn't think about it until now. Like you said, there's some guys do kind of go to a room and they see, okay, like I can be All-American or national champ here, but that's along with 70, 80 other names. You know, I got a fat head on Grandview's wall that's bigger than me. You know, I know it's going to be up there until they tear that place down. And that definitely does sit well in my heart, man. That definitely does.
And NAIA is awesome because they can give scholarships. You can take multiple guys to the nationals at the same weight. At least they used to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And so it's growing.
Crazy story. I'm not even going to
Go ahead.
I wrestled my teammate in the national finals at Grandview.
What?
He was the returning national champion. Gustavo Martinez. We wrestled in the national finals at 41. I got my first national title, and it was like the Camden Epper story all over again, right? Because like I know he's gonna be there. You know, we're teammates. You know, so we wrestled in the regional finals where I won that one, and we wrestled in the national finals. And I won that one. And, yeah, that was a surreal experience. I wasn't big on cutting weight. You know, I was telling my coach, I'm not. You know, I respect this, but I want to kind of feel good. So I was weighing about 47, 48. You know, and I was like, I'm just gonna go 41s. And you know, at first it was a little tiff on the team, but we got through it. And you know, I knew that me and Gustavo kind of knew we'd be wrestling in the national finals. And I think, you know, it was bittersweet for my coach because he just knew, you know, Mitchell knows somebody has to win, somebody has to lose. You know, but for me, you know, it was like I said, I needed that title for my legacy. You know, and
bro, after all the struggles and like, and I just got to imagine that first NCAA or NAIA title must have been just like out of this body kind of feeling.
It really was. Because at JUCOs, my pops hadn't got a chance to see me wrestle in the nationals. He was coaching his high school season there at Cathedral, and so like I said, you know, pops is there. You better be ready to perform. You better for a show. He ain't come. He'll let me know. I ain't coming this. Are you ready? I'm not coming all this way out here to see you play around. So yeah, and I knew what time it was. And I'm not gonna lie, man. I really had tapped into a different experience through that Grandview, that training phase. And I bulked my body up. My cardio was insane. You know, I became a top rider. I had never ever had like learned how to. I was working with shout out to Nick Gallick. Nick Gallick was living in the one of the time he was coming to Grandview's room, working top with me, just scrapping with me. So like I was going all kind of over beyond. Oh, I want that title, man. I want that title, and it was bigger than just being on Grandview's team. I kind of needed it for myself, you know, and in my last name legacy. So yeah.
Was there a big moment of reflection for you to like swallow the ego and not go D1? Because there's so much emphasis on wrestling D1 in our sport, and sometimes kids are clouded by it.
Man, it didn't sit with me until after I went to the universities when I was still redshirting at Grandview. I just transferred to Grandview. I got second at the universities, and I got second at the regionals. I know the Plains, so that qualified me for the World Team Trials, and I ended up wrestling Coleman Scott first round. And like I'm just like at this time, I listened to your previous shows. Like the guys that came up with us, man, international wrestling was not big when we were in when we were in middle school. Like you kind of like I knew some of the international guys. Like you kind of don't know. Like even this time, I'm at the World Team Trials and I'm about to wrestle. I'm at Okie State. I don't know how big of an opportunity this actually is, really, right? And afterward, I ended up getting. I default and Coleman Scott ended up getting hurt, so I ended up winning that match, and I got fucking choked out by Simmons. Then I got just trashed by Hallstrasser. But after that, there was schools, obviously D1 schools that had me like back on interest, and you know I'm pretty sure Manny wanted to meet. There was a couple of guys at school that wanted to meet, and honestly, I was just kind of like, I'm cool. You know, I think even Mitchell was a little worried. That Mitchell's kind of like, man, like I think he was kind of worried that my phone was gonna be ringing, and I told him, I was like, Coach, I'm off that. Like that don't define me anymore, you know, because for so long I felt like I had to go D1 to show everyone I was the best, to get the NCAA Division One title, but it's made me a better coach, a better wrestler. It's made me so much better in the long run. So I've tried to bigger things. I want to get the world titles. I want to put guys on the bigger stages, So I think that some of my wrestlers know too that I train here now. It's cool if you get the Division I scholarship and you get the division, and it works the system for you. But just remember, like Jordan Burroughs has 10 world championships, and I mean, none of those came with wearing NCAA singlet. You got to put the American flag on eventually and go represent the country, and those are the ones that really matter. And
plus, how much better is it when you're on a winning culture versus on a mid-major team that's terrible?
Yeah, that's my thing. What and some of these guys, I don't know I just knew coming from my pops' legacy, what I wanted for myself. If I wanted to win, I wanted my team to win. And at Cathedral, that's what we had a strong team at Cathedral when I was in high school. We had gotten third in the state twice. We almost won it. So I was used to being on and I would say Iowa Central. We had a strong team, that's year with the Cooley and the boys. And it was like, that's what we, I always wanted. So, and of course I had like Eastern Michigan or Michigan State, those kind of schools I could have probably fell back to after JUCOs or, but it just would have, been kind of like, man, that's maybe even harder, to get the most out of yourself, for just knowing like most of those guys they're riding on about 2 or 3 guys to hold those programs together, some of these programs together, and they don't get no results, man. You see what's happening.
Bro, there's nothing more depressing than an average team in like February when guys are just hanging on. It's really dark outside and you're just barely getting through.
That's scary for a coach, just knowing like, man, they could come here anytime and be like, hey, you guys are done.
Right.
We're not seeing results. So yeah, so going back to Grandview and having that culture of just winning and wanting to be the best. Like we wrestled Iowa State, they had to do this Iowa State my sophomore year, right before I came to the lineup. And we lost Iowa State by 3 points. We were right there. It was a lot of teams don't do Grandview. So to this day, I don't know how true it is, but when I was there, we couldn't put a lot of D1 schools on our schedule. It wouldn't. UNIs, I believe the UNIs were ducking us. I could hold strong to that.
Because they'd be afraid of them because it's that competitive. I mean,
for them it's a lose-lose.
Right. And dude, it pains me. I got to jump, and we're going to have you back on because you and I have we got a whole plan in motion here, baby, behind the scenes.
Yes,
but
sir.
The other thing I was wanting to talk about, but we'll get to next time is, man, when your return in 2017, when you're wrestling gross, when you're going to the world team trials, like, dude, that's all fun stuff that we will talk about. Brandon Wright, 2 questions left for you. 1, where can I get that sweatshirt? Number 2, how did wrestling change your life, sir? We'll sign off with that.
Man, go online, rightwaywrestling.com. Please go online, man. Book me for traveling commission work, private work. We're doing some huge things out here in Annapolis right now. My wife's partnered up with me with the brand. We've attached a nonprofit to our brand called Right Way For You. We'll be doing some home holistic healing with families and kids, getting kids into wrestling from the inner city. Plan to partner with BTS here in 2022. And wrestling didn't change my life. Wrestling is my life, man. It's been my life out the womb. My father's a legend. My son, Cosmo Wright, will be coming up in the ranks in about 10 years. You guys will recognize got the Legacy Series coming with Ryan, and wrestling changed my life, and we're excited, man. We're doing what God is destined for us.
Man, BJJ Fanatics, we haven't talked about that. You're doing stuff with them. It's like there's so much, or you have in the past, and there's so much. Yeah, I love it. And the fact that
with you, man, I've been wanting to get some exposure. I've been wanting to any other podcast, please, man, reach out to me as well. I want to keep sharing my story, and I'm excited for you to have me, Ron. Thank you so much, man. I'm blessed.
It's an honor. Have a great day, my friend. We'll be in touch soon. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Wrestling Changed My Life. This episode was presented by Spartan Combat. Spartan Combat has an awesome crewneck sweatshirt. Go to SpartanCombat.com, click on Kyle Dake, and you'll see the crewneck under his merchandise there. SpartanCombat.com. The crewneck retails for about $50. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.